to Josh Adams.
Today, the Simu Nation LMGT Masters, powered by NOX Gaming and brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing, look to begin their quest through Florida as they respect the bumps at Sebring International Raceway for round number 4 of our campaign. Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Prince for V-Speed's coverage of Simu Nation Racing, alongside Mike Nas, our producer Sagar Bakshi. Tonight's action is brought to you in part of Simu Nation, empowered indeed by NOX Gaming. Shop for all major sim racing brands under one roof. NOX Gaming also offers PC building services throughout Canada. Tonight's action brought to you in part also by Wolf Sim Racing. Wolf Sim Racing builds the high-end gear that makes the difference. Precision engineered dashboards and mods designed for ultimate performance. Don't just play the game, live it. Tonight, we expect things to get pretty wild as we're around the midway point of the season after this mark, Mike. Florida, when it comes to Sebring, known for its respect of how bumpy the circuit can be, but also how technical parts can be, as well as some of the areas such as the Ultimate Straight.
It's known as the GOAT track, a track as old as about the 1950s, a World War II runway at one point in time. But tonight we'll be on the grid for these drivers that you see here tonight. The points lined up in front of us. Xavier Chamberlain still at the top right now with 233 points, 1 win to his name. Christopher Larson also 1 win to his name, 160 points. Maxim Messenev down in 153 points for 3rd position. And again, the last of our winners thus far, 3 winners in 3 races, Justin, and the rest of the drivers not too far behind when it comes to the points.
Yeah, that's the understanding when it comes to today. It should be pretty intense how things can go. Remember last time out, though, it's a drama with drivers running out of fuel on the last laps. That included the air, Ford running out of gas in the closing stages. But as these drivers prepare for today, it's time to look over to your track guide. Brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing, driven once again by Xavier Chamberlain. Let's take a look at this one. Mike, talk us through this track.
Now this is a bit of a flat circuit, but as you mentioned, Justin, it is bumpy. You want to use all of the track that you can here, get as close to the wall and run out wide. You can dip a tire onto the dirt. It's not the end of the world, but it certainly can be if you go too deep. Down into the next few corners, it is a back and forth 3, 4, 5, left, right, left. And long left-hander till you get on the accelerator, the understeer central as it feels like. A little bit of a hair down moment as you go through Big Bend and down into the hairpin. Decent overtaking opportunities here. If you're bold enough, you can get a good run, fight your way to the inside and force your opponent to the out. It gets a little tight though, as you can see. The grass is never far away here at Sebring, and that can be the end of a lap in no time. Get another bit of a breather through Fangio and on the way down towards Cunningham in turn 10. Don't really want to be making any overtaking chances here. It's a high-speed, high-commitment corner, and you're gonna be bumping and banging, we'll put it lightly. Through Collier and down your way towards the tower corner. This is another setup opportunity where you can prioritize your exit on the way down towards Bishop Bend, turn 14. You blink and you miss it. This is a flat-out sector that requires a tremendous amount of commitment. One of the worst parts for me personally on the track. I always seem to end up deep here. On the way through the curb, using all of the circuit to your advantage, touch the curb on the inside, touch the grass on the out, and back on the accelerator, and on your way down to another decent overtaking opportunity, but more importantly here, gonna be the final corner of the track. Sunset Bend. Long right-hander, chuck it in, get onto the accelerator. And on the way through, get as close to the wall, but not quite touching, and back through, and that is going to be turn 17 done and dusted in one lap at Sebring, brought to you by Wolf Sim Racing.
Yeah, and it's going to be for left drivers here. Mike, it's important to mention, pardon me for cutting you off, there were raining conditions in practice. How does that change how you approach this track?
Well, as we can see here, this track is going to be very important for qualifying, especially as it is so flat, so difficult to overtake. 3.7 miles or 6.1 kilometers these drivers have to tackle with 17 corners, 10 to the right and 7 to the left. 3 meters of elevation to be found here. That's about 10 feet for us Americans. And as we can see here, Justin, as we get into the race format for tonight, it's going to get long.
Yeah, 75 laps, remember, as usual, custom setups when it comes to simulation competition, which means all these competitors we test on how much their work's been put in. It's also worth noting we are running with the endurance layout. What does that mean for our drivers? You see how there's the front straightaway pits, usually where the paddock club is. Now on the right side of your screen right now, instead we're going to the left, where you usually have a lot of the garage areas set up. That's instead where crews will be working all throughout the day for their pit stops. So we'll be pitting down the Ullman Straight instead of right along the front stretch.
Guarantee that won't cause any confusion whatsoever for us in the broadcast, but we'll get through it, I assure you, tonight. The pit stops we can expect somewhere around the 30s, I would imagine, when it comes to the laps. We'll see as we get into it. Obviously, some of the cars, Justin, being different fuel tanks, being different in terms of their efficiency. The Ferrari 296, for example, is extremely efficient at high speeds, when you have some other cars like the Lexus and the Ford Mustang that are a little bit thirstier. Never mind.
Yeah, well, taking a tow and immediately going back to that paddock area. Here is White Maisonneuve, right now 9th amongst the Fords. And keep in mind, in terms of the manufacturer side of things, there is a breakdown some drivers do have access to on what's the best times. The alien times, as in your superhuman, are at Sebring in 2-minute lap times in LMGT3. I don't think we're seeing that many times that quick. In fact, we're in the 2:11 still. Some of the times reportedly can get as quick as in the ballpark of the 2:03s, depending on the primary conditions, but with it being so hot, we aren't going to reach that main tipping point. However, the Lamborghini, interesting enough, has the projected best BOP when it comes to some of the metrics some teams have for the manufacturer side. Obviously, Laporte going to have a chance to take advantage with that, but the Porsches seem pretty solid to start.
Yeah, they seem to be up at the top. Now, to be fair, these are some of the more heavy hitters that you would expect to be up at the top, regardless of what manufacturer, what car they're going to be driving. But they are still going to be, obviously, plugging away. And I'm surprised. I'd expect the Ferrari also to be very strong as well. Again, one of the cars that's more dominant in a straight line. Now, it's not the most in terms of straight lines here, but down that back stretch, it feels like an absolute eternity when you're on the hammer. And there we see the side-by-side slipstream, but the Ford, or it's a BMW, seemed like going like a rocket ship. Nope, that's the McLaren. Okay, a bit of a kerfuffle going on right now. And to be fair, these drivers need to sort themselves out and find some open track or work with each other, one of the two.
Yeah, this isn't a track I normally would classify as a drafting one. Keep in mind, because of, even though you have the Ullman Straight, even though you have a couple of areas you can get maybe some pull on, it's really about how well you attack these corners to be able to set yourselves up for those long straightaways. Take the run out of Big Bend, getting a chance to build up a run to get a chance to dive to the inside up for the hairpin up here. So critical just to have a chance to be able to make a set by the hotel here. As you see some of the drivers just struggling to get the grip and saying, let's go and have a beach party out on the grass instead.
That sounds like a great idea, to be fair. I think everybody would like that, but no, now is not the time. Now is not the place. There's a time and place for everything, as we all know. But right now, time to get the hammer down. 13 minutes though left in qualifying. Again, still time to figure out a little bit about what you're going to be doing. But you'd want to work out that exactly there, what Cedric Courtier is running into, those little wiggles. How do I avoid that? What do I need to change in my setup as we've gotten to this current track temperature to get exactly the amount of grip that I need? Is it a little bit of rebound here, a little bit of toe over there? Whatever it's going to be, the drivers, they need to figure it out, especially as Courtier is sliding around like a dog on a freshly finished hardwood floor.
Yeah, this is, so far, for a couple of the drivers, been very twitchy to be able to hold on to the lines you see right now. Tellier having a hard time being able to hold on to the apexes here. See, it's right now 18th out of the 23 that have taken time so far. As you see in the session, a good 30-plus drivers at the very least have attempted to or have taken some laps in amongst the practice sessions here tonight. So this could be projected to be a pretty massive grid. A lot of drivers, interestingly, spending a fair amount of time still in the garage area making adjustments, or in the first 8 minutes yet to get a valid time on the board.
You know, I think that's also just a lot of confidence for some drivers. They know the track is only going to get quicker as the rubber keeps coming in. So is there really a point in going out in circuit if there's 20 minutes in time, if I only need 8 minutes to set a lap? You know, to each their own. I personally always say more track time is better, but, you know, some people just like to sit in their setups, lock in, and then put the time in that they need to. Also, doesn't really show their hand as well, so maybe if they're one of the quicker drivers, they don't want to give away some of the key details that they're doing to everybody else. But, of course, they clearly didn't watch the track guide provided by Wolf, if that wasn't the case.
I see you got the little dig there, as there's a little slippy slide. 23 machine going off into the grass. One of the McLarens having a bit of an issue. And that's how easy it is to lose grip in that section. Keep in mind off the start, we've seen that with Frank Cortex having issues in that section, for example. There is the potential of a lot of stack-ups off the start. Take, for example, last year during the springtime in SRO competition, there's a big 10-plus car pileup the start of one of the races in the opening sector alone, Mike, and that was a track blocker at the time that's seen a red flag in more than an hour or so. There is a lot of chances for drivers to bottle it up with the hard braking zones, especially out of this part here we're seeing with Burchard, and how much these drivers can then bottle up and pack up into each other and crash.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see that, but it is certainly a possibility, to say the least. These cars, these tracks, they're not, it's an old track. It's very, very narrow when it comes to the modern day wide body GT3s that we have out there. I mean, this Aston Martin, honestly, is one of the smaller cars in reality, the Ford Mustang being an absolute giant, even the Ferrari being quite wide these days, and every single car going to be all out, kerfuffled together, and yeah, it can cause a bit of chaos. Now, of course, we pride ourselves for the quality of racing here at the community Simu Nation, so I don't expect that too much, but anything can happen in motor racing, and it normally does.
We see crazier things. You know who's having a good qualifying run? The 22. Desarnaud is up there in 4th position as we go on. Keep in mind, 12th in the point standings for that Porsche, your second highest of the Porsches as well. So we still fall the 87. Keep in mind, for Jonathan's case, his best finish was 4th to start the season. You know how he's been since then? 20th and 17th. So it's not been great since the opening round where he was looking electrifying. This track seems to suit him to start off this round, though.
Yeah, luck has not been a lady, unfortunately, for him. But tonight can always change. Let's see if we can bring it back, just get the consistency down is I feel like what needs to happen, going for the desperate dive bombs and even just trying to go for defenses that maybe aren't going to be the most valid. That's always the big chunks, I guess that you could say, that get taken away from drivers, and I'm assuming ignore the graphic on the left as everybody is on wet tires. That doesn't seem correct.
That's actually an interesting question. We'll get clarification on that because I do see blue wall tires on the side. I doubt they're running on wets on a dry track. But with under 9 minutes to go, look at the weather. That is maybe a thought here. It is light rain in the projection. We're not seeing any rain spitting around and no puddles flying up. Where in practice, it was full rain in the session. It is pretty windy. Look at that, 25.2 kilometers per hour at the moment, locked.
Yeah, it is, and still, I'm just watching the onboards here a little bit closer, and I'm seeing occasionally when they hit the curbs, I can't tell if it's grass popping up or if there's a little bit of water on track, but that certainly explains the slippy, slidey moments that we're seeing from a lot of these drivers. A few, I think even Xavier Chamberlain struggling. I just watched him go around on track, so not necessarily the easiest conditions for a very not that easy track.
Yeah, you have to think whether it's going to be a factor for much of this race, just with the way the skybox has worked out here in the session. It's going to be really important for the drivers to manage the fuel and the virtual energy, I think, in this race here today, at least with the trends, knowing last week so many drivers were down to 1-2% at the very end, and that VE balance, so critical to make sure you don't have your car immediately coast to the finish line and bleed out points here. This is a track that, like France, you don't want to be on the far side of the circuit and run out because you might not make it around.
Yeah, just put a couple extra liters in. It doesn't, at the end of the day, it's a couple 10,000ths every single lap. Not really make or break. I would say it's better to finish the race than to not. So I've always been of the opinion to overfuel, but sometimes that results in me overfueling a little bit too much. So it's always a double-edged sword, and making sure you get your calculations right. And on top of that, obviously being in the wet conditions, that's going to play a role in terms of fuel calculation as well. And I honestly, I don't know if anybody knows how to calculate fuel in these conditions, as this isn't quite wet, this isn't quite dry. To be honest, these are some of the most difficult conditions to be driving in, where it's just slippery at some parts of the track, it's dry on other parts of the track, your tires are never really getting up to temp, or they're getting over temp, depending on how much pressure you put in, and it's difficult to get those extra lap times. I mean, we just saw Christopher Larson go pole position, but only by a few tenths.
Yeah, Larson able to jump to the top of the board with less than 6 minutes to go. That lasted all about 10 seconds, though, as there is Chamberlain top of the board by another half a second on pace. That 93 has just been so difficult to keep up with. Again, the main constant we've seen in your championship points to hammer this home has been you have to have top 3 speed to win the championship week in, week out. It's pretty clear that this season, Mike. The difference is Xavier has been the only driver to stay in the races for the podium finishes every week. And some of the others, like Legrand, are doing a great chance opportunity here for a big pickup. The 262.3 doing a great job in this race for qualifying already in the session.
Yeah, this is kind of the conditions where the great can shine from the good. And what I mean by that is, also, I guess it also gives an opportunity to find diamonds in the rough, because this is sort of the conditions that not many people practice for. You're either good at them or you're not. And we have Oliver Legrand here, clearly a intermediate condition expert as we see him. I mean, look at how planted his car is compared to the rest. And on top of that, he's driving in a Porsche, which is a rear engine car. In theory, you'd think would be the most difficult to be driving, but no, so far out in 4th position and doing a solid job, just really taking the corners slowly and getting on that accelerator late. Slow is fast, and that's how it should be. Xavier Chamberlain managing to find a little bit more out of it so far, and we just saw Pierre Laporte slide in as well with a 210 777 and Chris Larson with a 210 333.
So a lot of shuffling as the times pick up again here late as the track really cooling down, and you'd have to think with the cloud cover. Legrand, though, digging to try and respond here. Olivier came into today 15th points, missed the opening round of the season, but it's had top 10 speed all season long. A little twitch and sunset. Will there be enough to be able to get this spot here with a couple minutes to adjust? You already see Chamberlain up to the 209s. Let's see. This time through, didn't really see too much of a change there for the 263. So it looks like they'll have to come down pit road. You see the request pit button already used for the 263.
And I think that's going to be them maybe trying to get into the pit lane quick enough to get a set of dries on and get back out. Now, I think we're too late at this point for anyone on circuit. But we see drivers like, for example, here, Guillermo Perret, he is on dries and currently running in 12th position. I'm not sure how the sectors are stacking up as of now, but it looks like it could be the time to go over to these dry compounds. We might see a position stolen out from underneath some people here. We got a few drivers out on dries right now.
And I know there might be confusion on, wait, there's no raindrops here. There's nothing sticking, but there is the big point that might have been the reason we've seen so much of the crossover pop up here, if that's indeed the case here, is if that moisture stays in the track over the course of from the transition from practice to the qualifying, even though the puddles are there, your car could still slide. It's basically like, think of it this way. You're driving a car, it stops raining, but the pavement's still wet. You still could slide the tires for a good couple feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we see exactly what you just said in display pretty much right behind Perret here. And still plugging along though, Perret with a 51.7 for Sector 1, the 40.7 in Sector 2. I don't think it's going to be much quicker than previous. So we'll see. It looks pretty solid though so far, all things considered. The brakes are glowing red. That means the tires could be up to temp. I'd love to see the graphics here in LMU. I will say they did such a good job on the car modeling. And now getting down towards the back stretch, this is where the dry tires are really going to come in and make a difference.
Yeah, already the times for the pole up to the 209.2s now with under 90 seconds to go. That should almost get the run done for the 93. Right on the curves for Perret. Let's find out how the Omen straight fares out. Uses a little bit of the curbing to go just a little bit wide, but not enough to cut through the grass. Great views you can see around this track. Even though it's very flat here, there's a lot of opportunities for fans in real life to look around the circuit, and it looks like the 52 didn't like what they were seeing and said, you know what? I'm going to let some cars go. I think they might have picked up an off track in that sequence, Mike, if you're letting go like that.
Yeah, I would assume so, and just trying to get maybe one more lap out, but I think they're just going to come into pit lane and call it good for this qualifying session. Massenave up at the top. I was gonna think that I was gonna say untouchable. There's still a few drivers out here. I think Pierre Laporte is out on track still, could potentially. Don't count out Francois Ricciardi either, and we also have a few other big names. Donovan Bailey, who's on the dry tires. I'm not sure he'll be able to make too much out of it, but Lafontaine in 10th position right now. Hamel still out on track in 14th right now. So some big names that could see some big movement.
And I just got the clarification from third in line, Max Mason. Yes, they are on the wets to confirm that is correct on the graphics. That is not a glitch. These drivers, in the most case, have been turning faster and faster lap times. The track has been drying out on the wets. Laporte doesn't get himself higher than 6th, but here is the man that's been burning down the time charts. Your most dominant driver of the early going into the season, Chamberlain, looking to finish out qualifying with as much of an advantage as possible. Daytona, right now, half a second back. Purple sectors, all 3 sectors, last time by for the 93. Let's see how the qualifying closes here. It's a 209.043 that raises the bar by 7/10 now to the 22.
That is going to be very difficult to beat when it comes to race pace. And I think Decimo has a lot of work to do. Massenev has a lot of work to do. Chamberlain, I feel like heading into this one is going to be the absolute favorite. And could this possibly be our first ever double winner for the championship? I think that this might be the time. It's going to take a miracle. I think, to be fair, I think no matter what, we're going to see a double winner. Is it going to be Chamberlain, though, I suppose is the question to ask.
Yeah, that's going to be the huge question. is, can he keep it clean? Can he get the strategy right? As Daytona, I think, didn't like the run. Resets for the line. Might have had on tracks. Richard going a little bit cutting tight in. Not sure if there's going to be invalidations here too with that run that he took through Le Mans. So an interesting qualifying session as most of the field has completed their runs. This going to be basically your last car to take a time. There is some drivers slow in front in Sunset. Will Richard be slowed up here? Needs to go up by a second to have a chance at the pole. The Aston Martin puts up a time that's second quickest, but it's only off by a tenth and maybe a tenth and a third.
It may have been the last lap, but it certainly was not the least one. My goodness, a 209.1. A driver that surprises me here is Christopher Larson. Came out hot at the start of qualifying, only managed a 10.333. Very, very disappointing, I feel, for him. But as we get into it here tonight, Justin, these are your standings.
Yes, indeed. As you see, 0.1 tenths of a second, the difference. And I think it's ominous when the session transitions a bit to green, but there's the true transition. Wet pavement for parts of the racetrack still, but some sun peeking out to keep an eye on when they start rolling for that starting grid here today. That grid looks like this. Chamberlain starts on the pole today. Richard alongside. We'll see how U8R does here with Daytona and Max Maisonneuve amongst your top four cars. Fifth today goes to Patrick Herger. Then it's Christopher Larson, one of his lowest starting spots in sixth. Seventh goes to P.E. Laporte, with Stefan Lafontaine will start in the 8th spot. Rounding your top 10 today, Olivier Legrand and Philippe Maisonneuve rounds out your top 10.
Maxim Grenon there coming into 11th position with Donovan Bailey close behind in 12th. Marc-Antoine Hamel down in 13th with Jordan Burrow in 14th. Guillermo Perret in P15 alongside Cedric Courtier in 16th position with Jean-Francois Nollet in P17 with Guillermo Fonse down in 18th. Dan Poland in 19th. When rounding out your top 20 is going to be Nicholas Leroy.
P.A. Longue starts in 21st with Zach Wolf down to the 22nd starting spot. 23rd goes to Andre Moreau. Then William Philippe will be in 24th today. 25th goes to Carl Maurer. Then Frank Gortex deep in the order, 26th. 27th goes to David Pittman. Then it's Matroni down in 28th today. Bonnie at your top 30. John Beneke and Felix Gagne is in 30th. The other cars in the field, Charles H. Dubois and Benoit Rousseau. Set to start 32nd. Others in the field entered Steve Ward, Rick Gonsalves, who did not set times in the order. Same for Mitchell Carroll or Mason Aschenbrenner, a part of a lot of cars who at the very least entered this race here on V-Speed. Quick keys to victory as we get ready for the start. Wow, on that note, two teammates are alongside on the front row here. U8R is in control as we set things up here for this one. Chamberlain starts things off in the Porsche. The Aston Martin to the outside and Richard. Happy with this here for today's coverage. You have Simu Nation GT3 Masters powered by NOX Gaming, ready to get rolling here from Sebring. The infield is packed, the track is packed. Let's get ready to rumble here once again. Green, we're underway, and we're already 3 wide for the race lead, 4 wide to the heart of the field. Track is very slick as they send their way into the opening corner. Richard's up at the front of the field. Daytona holds on to second off the jump, but many drivers trying to work through the rooster tails.
Big pinch in the background. The McLaren and the Lamborghini nearly coming together. That's going to be Patrick as well as Pierre. Pierre getting his way through the field early here, at least trying his absolute best to manages to shove ahead there, does Christopher Larson. But as we get into the S's, nip and tuck is the order. The background still going to be deciding who is going to be who, and up at the front as well. It looks like Pierre looking to get the moves on early. I suspect he's going to go for a bit of a dive bomb. No, the outside is going to be the favor. Can he get the switch back? Not on this occasion. Looks like it's going to have to be down towards the back straight, unless, my goodness, contact occurs and we get alongside immediately the 662, fully alongside the McLaren, able to fend off as we see Herger trying to get the defense, but not going to happen on this occasion.
Great start for this. No, not a great start there for Hamel, who spins around to the heart of the field off the racing surface. The 79 plummets down the timing circuits. As you can see, 28 overall started this race after 36 plus entered, and already at least one driver with an incident. Desarnaud, though, trying to make sure there's no troubles, while Maisonneuve looks to pressurize for second. Chamberlain losing ground already, down by 8/10 to the 22.
Yeah, devastating there, and trying just to hold on. We'll get a replay of that, by the way, here as soon as we can. Unfortunate start there for some, but it looks like there are some big movers as well as we have the beginning of this field. Desormeaux, 2 positions gained at the start to be up in the lead. Chamberlain loses 1. 2 positions also for Larson, 2 for Pierre. And our biggest gainers, actually 6 positions for Perret. We also have 6 positions for Poulin down in 13th, 7 for Gore-Tex in 19th currently. So some big prospects early on and some big movers still to come.
And obviously the fastest lap going to change over the course of this run, especially if it dries out or it gets more wet. Who knows? As time goes on, as you can see, a couple drops to back happen to come down pit road. Richard, who started off immediately to the lead, immediately down to a battle instead for 9th position. That's how things can change if you get yourselves out of sorts here. Richard already having to go back on the offensive here today after what was a rough middle sector here. The separation starting to pop up for a couple of these drivers. Look at how much some of these competitors are having issues just gripping this track with how slick this circuit is with the very cloudy track.
Yeah, having 500 horsepower in these conditions, or 500 plus horsepower, I should say, is not ideal. And as we see immediately, Donovan Bailey, one of the heavy hitters early on, finds himself off in the grass. By the way, an update on Hamel, by the way, and what happened to him. It was just a little bit too much right foot, basically exactly what we were saying. So honestly, no need to really look at that replay. It was pretty self-explanatory. He hit the throttle too hard, pitched the wrong way, and the rest was history. We're going to see a bit more of that, I suspect, here tonight. There's still 70 minutes on the clock nearly. And as we see, the drivers are, well, they're looking fairly aggressive here. Laporte on Larson, a battle that you wouldn't expect at this stage. I think these two would want to work together.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how some of these drivers decide to battle out a little bit, if they do end up working together even. Because you see the intervals already popping up here. That's way off for Larson. Larson off the groove. And that's how simple it is to just slide off the racing line out of Bishop up to Le Mans.
Yeah, very, very easy mistake. And look at this immediately, Larson onto the back of Herger, just trying to get the, well, lose as little as he can right now. He made up positions early on, but now you can see he's down back into 6th. So going backwards is never what you want to find. And Philip Massenave also looking at a position potentially from Francois Richard. But that Ford Mustang is going to be an absolute beast to be driving, and what was once 208s is now 215s as the fastest lap.
Yeah. Okay, David Pittman amongst those in a heavy battle right now. This is amongst those in the 20s, by the way. Yeah, Blake back here, Dan Poulin. We also have Donovan Bailey after his slide off the racetrack, looking to get the elbows out. And you have to really pick your spots in battles like this where you know there's probably going to be the one groove. You see right there, you lose grip like Blake just did, and you just get taken off all the way off the surface. There is probably going to be one little bit of a dry line if that forms up here with the course of the race, and that's going to cause a problem for anybody sending it. Look at how difficult it is just to run even the single line. More spins, in fact, in front of them. that is going to send around Morrow.
And with the pressure builds and the pressure, we know it can either forge diamonds or it can turn you into about a million pieces. Moreau nearly getting taken out by Hamel there as he drifted on by him. It looked like a curling stone going by for a moment, but no, I assure you that was a BMW. Back onto the tail now, Chris Larson and Patrick. Oh my goodness. I sense something boiling here, and I hope it's not the water on the circuit. Immediately as I say that, pressure builds, and that's going to force a mistake from the McLaren. Larson getting him a side draft, using all of the track now to go to the outside, carry the momentum through, and I think Patrick honestly just said, you know what, enough is enough. He got the position and gave it up there at the end. Larson manages to get the job done, back up to 5th.
Battle for the lead is on because Chamberlain has picked up the momentum after seeing the gap build up early for the 22. The 93 responding in kind. New fast sector 3 last time through. And Chamberlain takes advantage up through Sunset to take back the race lead and hold on towards the inner groove, trying to hold things on the Porsche. So an interestingly good start for the 22, who has had a rough past 2 races. But the driver who's led the points coming into today, now able to get the strike for now as you see him hug the inside.
Yeah, this looks aggressive as Desormeaux was trying to find the line to the inside, and this is not the time. This is not the place you want to go for an overtake. And thankfully, Jonathan realizes that he gets on the brakes, looked Death straight in the face and said, give me your best shot, and then at the last moment backs out and says, actually, I'm good.
Yeah, now the question will be, will Chamberlain take this chance to run away a little bit here? Max Maisonneuve is staying within the range, also able to pick up the pace after ditching Pierre-Etienne Laporte over the course of his charge to be able to get back up here. So interesting facets of the race so far. We're not even within the first 10 minutes complete yet, by the way. That's how wild this opening start has gone so far. Looks like Herger has also just lost a little bit of ground in the 7th spot now in the 777. He's -2. First start of the season today, Mike. He's got experience in real life in the drift scene in Quebec, but has also made appearances in the series, and there goes the 87.
Using the drift skills to his best abilities, I would say, at this point. Richard, unfortunately, going for a bit of a spinal at this point, finds, I think, a little bit of the barrier, or you can't quite tell. Looked like some carbon fiber damage on the car. Hopefully not, and he can just get back out on circuit. Thankfully, when it comes to spinning, oh my goodness, as De La Fonte has found himself down 7 positions at this point and battling for the scraps for 13th position right now. But when you do have a spin, Justin, at least it's absolutely sopping wet, and your tires don't really overheat that much.
Yeah, and right now, at this point, don't think the tires are the biggest concern. It's more so just survival of your car. We'll say Donovan Bailey at the least. We've seen him originally in the battles in the 20s. He's been able to charge up to the battles with Law and company. Poulin right now trying to find a way to close. De La Fontaine getting a little bit slidey going up the Omen straight. Just looking to try and get some draft built up, maybe set up an opportunity with the McLaren, trying to pass the Ferrari with the Porsche. Now trying to pass the Ferrari 3 wide. That sets up the send for the 4 as Bailey wraps the bottom. No issue, it looks like that time with that send, as there goes De La Fontaine, carried off the racetrack.
Picked the wrong line, unfortunately, and look at the difference what a couple inches makes in these conditions. Immediately, Donovan Bailey trying to go for the moves, and we're going to send it 3 abreast down the start-finish straight and into T1. The NOX Gaming livery absolutely shining bright here in these conditions, and as we see the overtake now from Bailey, it was a 3-move gain in about, oh, well,
never mind.
Commentator's curse. Alrighty, sorry, Donovan. Oh, immediately, though, back side by side. This is a sketchy rejoin. He's managed to find the position somehow, as that's a mistake from, I think, De La Fontaine, as he drops back now, and yes, indeed it was, down back behind Dan Poulin.
This is up there for one of the craziest starts to a race you can see in the first 15 minutes, at least for this series. By the way, Daytona has lost second to another one of the U8R machines. Max Masoner looking very solid. And for Max, obviously going to have to make up a lot of ground for the missed race, to say the very least, Mike. But right now he's doing the best he can at that to at least battle for good spots in the prize pool to set himself for the second half of the season. And right now, the Aston Martin looks very secure. There's the hydroplane. We're talking about a lot of puddling now in Le Mans right at the curb.
Problem here for Massenave is Daytona is in theory quicker. I think it's just down to consistency alone, really, and I wonder if that's just the Porsche in the wet. I've always been very curious. I don't think I've driven in wet conditions here in LMU just yet, so I'm not sure exactly what these drivers are experiencing, what the feel is like. As we all know, every sim has a different feeling when it comes to these wet conditions, and LMU being the most recent of them. I'm sure the drivers, as you can see, they're having a great time out there right now. Desormeaux just trying to pick his moment like a strategic chess player right now. But where do you do it? How do you make a move? Do you just wait for a mistake from Massenave, or do you just work with him, then go for a dive bomb when you have the opportunity?
It's really a balancing act, possibly, as it gets really harder and harder to that rain out there. Pulling for his measure. Up to 13th to match his car number. He's able to pass by the kart racer, Carl Muller, to be able to shuffle him back to the 14th spot. Now, there is one little note to mention that in the past couple weeks or so, there was an update to some of the BOPs for the cars, in particular the LM GT3s, that fixed the incorrect positioning of the BOP ballast from a previous update and essentially changed some of the details at a couple of the tracks. For example, take the Aston Martin. That actually seen a maxed in energy update of +1 for its BOP metrics. There's a lot of different dynamics, Mike, when it talks about, okay, how do you adjust the BOP of a car? What's that going to be like at a track? But that is coming into play for a few of the drivers, as here comes the Ford in the wall.
Yeah, and speaking of that as well, I wanted to mention that we've had a DNF, not just from Philip Massenave, as he's unfortunately not looking that way. Hopefully he's rejoining the track, so that's very, very good. But we had a DNF from, as I'm double-checking, Francois Richard. He's gone. He's managed to spin 3 or 4 times. I was going to find the moment in which to find a replay, but to be honest, I won't subject him to it. He just kind of had a moment, then had another moment, and then had another moment, and it's just been a race of downfall, and he has unfortunately returned to the garage and will not be receiving any points this race.
Here comes the question. If you have a feeling it's going to be a rainy session, or know there's a chance of a rainy session, how do you change how you set up a car for a race like this to be able to battle like you're seeing up front, and so you don't end up slipping and sliding? Oh no! There goes Max Masoner around, out from second in the heart of the field, able to loop it back around, but the 116 drops to 5th.
Yeah, and the stewards will absolutely be taking a look at that incident, and to be honest, kind of what we were hinting, or what I was about to say and to answer your question, maybe just played a role right there. We saw the mounting of the curb that kind of put him in the position to go up ahead there, and then the clattering into the side from it. Higher ride, put my teeth in real quick. A higher ride height typically will help in these conditions. You can just get a little bit above the ground. It makes that aquaplaning a little bit less prevalent and allows you to use a little bit more of the track. The lower you are to the ground, it's not going to help you too much in these conditions. So that's one thing they'll change. The rebound, the other details as well, of course, a little bit above my pay grade, to be honest. But those are some of the things that I do know they will be taking a look at.
Good charge for the 51, by the way, here for Nollet to be able to get up to the top 10. The Quebec-based driver able to gain a lot of ground, it seems, with how things looked in qualifying. And the BMW has looked pretty solid here in what has gone from what was, I think, medium rain to start to a monsoon, by the way. Let's see if there's enough to send to the inside. No. But you see right here, heavy rain. That's expected for a bit, but look at the transition. This is going to be the type of race you almost want to stay on the wets, because there's a part of the quality period, then it's a cloudy and drizzle, it still rains to the end of the race. You kind of can't just say, okay, we're changing tires every 15 minutes. You have to pick a tire, as both BMWs go off.
Oh, and unfortunate there, as Francois is going to come back on circuit quite quickly and sends it side by side. Ahead there does Courtier with Dan Poole, and looks like that's been resolved. The Porsche manages to find the ground there, but another avoidable contact, as I'll just put it, unfortunately, has been, well, not avoided. Look at the pack of cars now as well, as everybody is line astern at this point. And this, I think, is only going to cause a little bit more chaos. De La Fonte in the pack here. He's down how many positions at this point? 6 positions. Looking to make it maybe 5 here, down to the inside, Justin. Can he get it done? Not on this occasion.
Yeah, a lot of drivers are struggling here. Just looking at some of the comments. Oh, no, another one! Another slam for Nolette to the inside of the 51. That drops him down to 16th. There goes all the spots that they had gained the entire race out the window.
You absolutely hate to see it, and they're going too fast for me. I can't even get the replays quick enough here for Sagar, unfortunately. And I've managed to get the Massenave incident up. I don't know if we want to take a look at that, but again, so many dramas are going on at this stage. It's so hard to keep track of all of the yellow flags. Grenon has just had a mistake. We've had Moreau with mistakes. We've had Moreau with mistakes as well, all over the place. And as we see now, immediately down to the inside, there's a slow Ford Mustang, and around the out goes a McLaren. Can Massenave hold it on? He can at this occasion, which then bottlenecks Maurer and allows De La Fontaine through. This is a shuffleboard. I don't even know what you could call this at this point, but pretty much whatever. You could take a picture of these positions right now, look at it in 10 minutes, and you might not see any of these names on the leaderboard.
Yet, this rain is piling on in now. I was about to say, before everything went into Kerfluffle land, was there were practice races yesterday, and there were a bunch of memes posted by drivers from that session on Ride the Wave, floodplains as trucks drive through about 20 feet deep water. As David Pittman put it, he said that his arms got worn out. I love a rain race, but that was so much water, I think you need a rudder and some propellers. We're kind of in propeller territory now.
Yes, we absolutely are. The Ford Mustang looking quite good in that. And oh no, Dan Poulin has managed. He was doing so well. How many positions? Dan's still up quite a few positions even after the barrier. Now he's back even where he was, but I think it's about 5 positions. Now, unfortunately, that has come awry with a barrier. Allowing a few other drivers through, though. 3 positions gained. They're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Let's see what De La Fontaine can do here. This has been a back-and-forth battle between Massenave and De La Fontaine, and I don't expect this to go anywhere anytime soon. I would have suspect for these two drivers, they would hope it goes somewhere. But to update everybody, we started this race on about 19% rain. We're up to 40% rain right now.
If this is 40%, I'm curious what 100 looks like. As oh boy, De La Fontaine getting a little twitchy. Just hugging the wall, trying to take away 11th yet again. As Philip Maisonneuve doing a good job defending up on the higher groove. Now has the preferred line when they come back across here into turn 1. See that sharper cut? You see them have an angle to avoid the puddles. And look at the crossover. Even then, no grip for the Ford.
This is absolutely pixel perfect driving, at least up to that point. De La Fontaine has contact with Massenave, and you can't fault either of the drivers. Whoa, my goodness, you can fault the Massenave parking his absolutely massive rear end in front of pretty much the 2 McLarens here. And look at that, there are puddles forming on the side. You can't afford to really swerve aggressively. If you do find a car suddenly in front of you and you have to take evasive maneuvers, you might end up in the next continent, as Nicholas Leroy, I was gonna say, makes such a brilliant move, but unfortunately just overcooks it slightly and allows Maurer right back through.
Nicolas Leroy going around again, and it continues to be a problem. Is that
What is?
I should probably
so
correct
well?
myself. I was about to say, I think he's just adjusting pit settings already here. Drive-through, that's why. The 22 had a drive-through behind the request for pit.
Now, this is not a unique thing, I don't think, because this is going to be off of off-tracks, I would assume. So Disarmo picking up a drive-through penalty from exceeding track limits, and I'd imagine that he's not the only driver that's going to do this. Oh, he crossed the white line, so he was going for his scheduled pit stop at this stage? That seems a bit crazy. Either way, I still think it's possible for more drivers to find themselves subject to that, so I wouldn't count anybody out yet, but Disarmo making life a lot harder on himself than it needed to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting play here. Obviously, with that penalty, that's one thing that was announced to drivers earlier tonight, where for those who hadn't practiced the pit line, you cannot cross the light line once it pops up to the right hand of where the corners pop up towards the start of Sector 3. You cross that in any way, as you see, that's a penalty. So Desarno now in a situation where the race is going Desarno in terms of where the finishing order could go. The 22 will likely with that fall down to the 20s at the minimum, all because of that one situation here.
Yeah, you absolutely hate to see it. And like I said, though, I wouldn't count. I think I would count other people out. They'll see that and they'll probably say, maybe I should take a little slower into pit lane. It's so easy to cross the white line in these conditions. And the reason is because these drivers, they may have practiced their pit entries and dry lines over and over again, which, to be fair, they probably didn't do it enough in my opinion. But they certainly didn't practice their pit entries in these wet conditions. At least I hope they did. As you said, the drivers knew about these conditions coming in, so they certainly should have put the preparation in, and a driver like Disarmo absolutely should have as well. Oh my
Here we go
goodness,
again.
wiggle, wiggle. Oh, a tank slapper and a half. And that's going to be an unfortunate one for the Ferrari.
Ziggle Sport on the car. That car going for some ziggles indeed in that sequence, as with all the wildness, Philippe Maisonneuve, who was in the wall a couple minutes ago, by the way, has a chance to get back into the top 8. He was up around 8th about 3 spins ago. Has Coutelier in this group also leading it in the BMW. It's been kind of wild with how many mistakes have popped up in this group. Chamberlain, for good measure, with course at 10 laps, has grown the gap to 9 seconds. So it's really the difference between who's the brave and who's those trying to find their water wings here in the weather.
Yeah, and also just who can keep it the most consistent. To be fair, we haven't talked about Chamberlain too much this race just yet, but he was battling back and forth with Disarno pretty much the entirety of this race, and now look at the gap that he's managed at the top, 7.8 seconds. De La Fontaine would absolutely love to find himself in a window like that, but no, he's currently sat side by side with a Ferrari right now, or excuse me, a BMW of Courtier, and nearly making contact at the apex once more, but both drivers holding on and keeping the side-by-side trend as well. This isn't going to end just yet.
Yeah, Coutelier keeping reference. 2 top 10s this season. 13 of the points because he in the middle of those 2 top 10s. Had a 24th place run during the second race of the season. Seems like it's another one of those trends, as I think another trend's popping up with more pit adjustments being made by a race leader, the 93 of Chamberlain. A few of these drivers are already thinking of a lot of different strategy here. So how does this going to work in terms of the fuel consumption? The virtual energy is still in the 50s and 60s, mind you, which is why there was the interesting call in the first place for Desarno to pit there. How does this play in, knowing you're going slower in theory with the rain, right, Mike? Which means less fuel consumption usually.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this stage it doesn't change that much. You just have to get to a certain point in the race to pit, and the conditions are, well, to be fair, are they going to get worse as we can pull up a quick little weather report here, potentially?
They will get better and then bad.
Better and then bad. I mean, you got to roll just at this point. I think the cards that y'all don't go for any other strategies, I think be a lot lost at this point. You don't want to overcook cook your tires. Maybe not at 10 temperature, and that's the problem with these drivers, but you do not want to overheat them.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting part on the side, right? Because that's that. These temperatures, when you put a wet tire on a wide track, it'll be more than like each way, so to speak, because the way at the end of the first of the tire, and keep by water would run the channel, cools these tires in theory. When you have those wet tires, the slick, you don't have to worry about that. You just have to will track first with itself. And you're seeing right now, a lot of these drivers are going to have to think about how things play out in a few minutes as we see the battle going on for Maurer. Looking to try and look around Fonseca. That gets him back to 11th. Again, a decent charge for the Star Trek paint scheme.
Did he manage to keep it on track? Nope, not quite. I think he went a little bit deep, and there he's going to be wide as can be, and actually that's going to allow Fonseca right back through Maurer. A little over exuberant. He's trying to use the wall here to send a dummy to the inside, but no, he's going to be committed fully to the end. My goodness. Here he goes. Is he going to make it stick this time? It looks like he is. Nearly, though, Maurer taking the nose off of Fonseca, but Fonseca complies, allows him on through, and the move is done. A little more difficult than he would have liked, but the job done nonetheless.
Yes, indeed, and now it's the matter of how far he can get back up the road. It's 4 seconds to get up to the Fords, as right now, see the search is on for the grip for a lot of the cars. Donovan Bailey searching right now for 6th spot. He's been all over the place, to the grass, to the track, to the spots, to the everywhere. But that candy-themed machine has been able to find the sweet spot here as we approach the middle third of this race. Able to charge up to Perret to be able to provide pressure here for the 52.
Yeah, but is it going to be like taking candy from a baby? Let's find out. Perret is a little bit deep. In fact, he's all over the place pretty much. Bailey can't really pick his line. You can still see there's stationary water on circuit, so these wets aren't going to be getting overheated just yet. And we've seen how powerful the slipstream can be down this back straight. The Porsche using every bit of horsepower that it can. As soon as it breaks out of the toe, there's a wall of air pressing down on it. Has he managed to get it stuck in? I'm not so sure, to be honest. That outside line is going to allow a slingshot and a half for Perret. However, that's going to be done enough. Donovan Bailey, he manages to get up to 6th now.
Yeah, nice spot, nice pickup. And same can be said in terms of this fight here. Maisonneuve able to hold off Cortillier in terms of this spar out. They do have a far out gap. A little bit to the next spot here and there once they get to the La Fontaine. But remember, it's better than being up on the wall for the Ford. We've seen both the Maisonneuves look pretty solid in this series. We've, of course, seen Max charge up to the top 3 in the points. But it's been okay so far, in his sake. As he continues on, have a good look. Speaking of looks, some 3 wide popping up here in the battle for 11th again.
Now this, I got to give some credit where credit's due. Karl Maurer here, we may be seeing him in every single fight that we pretty much look at, and there's a good reason for it. He's up 14 positions so far, and he's trying to hang on right now. Look at the competition in the background. That 14 positions can turn to 9 positions gained real easy as... Am I correct on that? Yeah, 11 positions? 11 positions. The timing, you know, we're close enough, I suppose. Interesting. Either way, Fonseca has managed to keep as consistent as can be, but look at the pressure from behind now. Leroy is going to be all over him like a rash, and this is going to be a tough one to contend with.
Yeah, right now you see just how much the pressure's building up with the Ferrari on the charge. Fonseca, a little deeper on the brakes, but no major passing opportunities to work their way up through 10, up to Collier. Slide their way to 12 and 13. Of course, far side of the racetrack in terms of this part of the circuit, to say the very least, up through Tower. We've seen so many mistakes here today. Cars pushing off. into the grass, especially with the speed carried up to set them up for 14 onward. It's feeling like this is almost to where you get to the upper limit of what these tires can handle when it comes to being able to run in the rain.
Yeah, and that is going to be where the drivers have to find that limit, to be honest, and balance it and then keep it balanced for the rest of this race, managing the virtual energy, managing the fuel. We're just below 50% when it comes to the fuel, but there's still plenty left to go. I expect, let's see, how many laps have we completed? 13 laps so far. The drivers, they easily can go another 13 before they have to come into the lane. So I would imagine the battling will go on, and oh, that's a little bit deep for Fonseca, and immediately Leroy is going to be taking advantage of his opponent's mistake, puts it alongside. Now a drag race down to the first corner. It should be advantage to Fonseca as he has the inside line. However, Leroy just has so much speed, he manages to get the pass done before the braking zone.
Well, you're going to indeed able to get that going in the 6. A little bit of a slide. Fonseca got to grip it back up, though, yet again. But the McLarens here today, seen so far, a couple of major slides for them. The rear grip has been a challenge, we know for most. But what would you describe in terms of that grip feel, you would say, in a McLaren compared to some of the others with what we have seen at this track, as we've also seen the 22 take up back 18th?
Well, the McLaren has a lot of horsepower when it comes down to its output. I think it's a big engine, well, 4-liter twin turbo, and it has a boatload of torque with it. And it's mid-engined, of course, being the balance is going to feel fairly planted. What has happened here? We're going to have to pull up a replay of this pretty soon. It looks like we've had a 3-way contact with Fonseca and a few others, and this car is crab walking, so hold that thought.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. They were looking decent before that, and obviously they requested a pit stop, going to make some adjustments here. Drivers can make the adjustments with that push the button, or it means they will indeed have to go to the safety crew. Obviously, the 37 looking to be that case here, really separated out now, where the 117 and the 6 now are on the far side of the circuit. But the battle of the McLarens is on. Curious what happened here to Fonseca in this case, Mike.
Yeah, we're searching right now. The replay system is, we're working on it right now. So just 2 secs.
Well, you gotta love the ability to be able to look at those incidents, but you gotta love the ability to charge up for passes like LeBron can do here. There goes the 6, able to cut underneath, going straight, and right back into the dry line that's formed up. You have seen that line pop up, it looks like here, because you can see a little bit difference in shading on the racetrack around here. It's not like it's a complete wet spot everywhere. You can see a little line pop up where the rubber is.
Yeah, and that's going to be an absolute fear for these drivers right now. They're going to want to be puddle hunting. In fact, that's maybe, as I'm starting to get to the edge of that, that's sort of what's, oh my goodness. All right, well, hold that thought. We're going to get a replay of this very, very shortly. But yes, the puddle hunting, we're going to see an example of that very shortly.
Yeah, at this point, it's just trying to be able to set things up here as they continue to set up opportunities to build up. And as you can see, there's not really any drops hitting the car itself. Now, we have gone into that partly cloudy condition we were talking about around this point of the race. As here's the pit stop window open. The leader is in. This is probably the earliest on the season we've seen a stop here, actually.
Yeah, very interesting. I wonder if that is scheduled. We will, though. I do have a replay of that incident, by the way. When we do get that up and running here, it's a bit of a spicy one. So as we pull it up here, we can see this is Longo, actually, or this is, yes, Longuez, down to the braking zone, and, well, didn't quite get it stuck in time. That was Fonseca that you saw punted into oblivion, and unfortunately for them, they, well, got taken out pretty much. Their front right was disappeared into the ether, and Longo was, well, he's still out on circuit.
So, as the result here, Fonseca's just now completing a service in this situation. the window indeed now open for a couple of the drivers here. Now, at this point, the thought has to be, in this circumstance, if you're taking the stop now, at the very least, try and help yourself with tire wear for later on at the back end of the run, maybe? Because that's at least my thought here. What's your kind of take on this with the approach, especially knowing we have a dry period and then a slight wet period, when it's still too wet for dries?
I say just keep going for right now. The track I don't think is ready. I mean, see, the overtakes are still happening. Just Armo managing to muscle his way by Felipe there without too much issue. And the lap times, we see the previous lap from our leader, Laporte, which, when did that happen? Wait, what? Am I looking at the right thing here?
Pit stop.
Oh, pit stop cycle. Goodness me. Yes, thank you. Xavier Chamberlain, his laps are in. So yes, 2:16s. From a 2:15 from the best of Laporte and 2:16.1 what he's currently running, he's only a second off pace. I don't think that warrants a pit stop just yet. Once you get to that second, maybe, I guess it depends. It's getting close. We're getting close.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's take a look at the last laps for reference. You see some of the drivers in the back on the 220s. Front of the fields in the 215s. Remember, we qualified in the 209s. As the track dried off during qualifying, but a majority of the field still ran on the wets with their fast laps. Pace isn't fully there, and Chamberlain, we'll see if there's any time. That shows how much the track is drying here. Just went to 214s.
Yeah, which means, though, I still think you want to just use this rubber while you have it. If Laporte can get that much pace out of his tires, you might as well use it right now. I'm very interested. Timing tower not quite updated fully, but we're getting there. 2:15. So we're seeing from Larson. It's hard to parse together. There's Pittman, who's unfortunately looks like he's been hit with a pit maneuver.
Yeah, off the circuit. That'll put him well behind the order here now in 23rd rather. Chamberlain, you see there, went to 2:15s on his response. Raw still charging up late in his run. Cortillier now up on the outer groove, and the 6th drifts on by into 10th.
Very easily done. Would not be surprised to see the shoe going onto the other foot pretty much immediately. I wouldn't be surprised in 5 minutes or 25 minutes from now, or even the 36 minutes and 49 seconds that we have remaining here in this race. And my goodness, what this has done to the points, I don't even want to begin to calculate. There are so many heavy hitters well out of position. There are some drivers that didn't have the best races up in heavy positions. Now, this is kind of thrown a monkey wrench at this whole championship and really shaken up who's going to be looking at what prizes.
Yeah, we haven't touched upon the prizes too much yet here tonight with how busy things have been with the chaos. Remember, for those who are watching this series for the first time, it's $250 for NOX Gaming as a gift card prize package. For the championship, second place, $125. Third place for NOX Gaming Sim Racing gloves valued at $90. Plus, keep in mind, you better run the races, because if you run at least 6, you get to draw for some t-shirts as well. Top 3 podium finishers also get the ultimate trophies from Wolf Sim Racing. They also, of course, are the sponsor of the practice sessions, on top of being one of the sponsors for this series. So in our words, a lot of prizes on the line as the times continue to increase. Max Mason-Nerve just went up another couple tenths.
Yeah, surprisingly so. The times keep rolling in, the laps keep getting faster and faster, and that means, as you said before, Justin, the track is getting drier, and we're starting to see less puddles as well. So the tires are really going to be hurting at a certain point here. I'm curious, as I'm taking a look at Xavier Chamberlain and exactly what he's managing here on his previous laps. Now, his previous one, not quite, I don't think, representative, but 2:14.5 again. No, it's a 2:14.7 from Massenave. Old tires compared to oh my goodness, Chamberlain's 2:14.5. So nearly identical lap times here. So really, I think Chamberlain went preemptive.
Yeah, definitely. It's seeming to be the case here as Poulin, amongst those making the cut. Remember, just minutes ago was in the wall, but has Desorno on his recovery drive, picking off spot after spot. Desorno, but the pole, can he get the send the stick up to turn 1? Yes, he can. Desorno now back up to 15, but curious where the VE is going to stack up here in the end, because, yeah, 66%. That's the same amount as the 93 after pitting 10 minutes earlier, mind you. So there is a chance if you follow the VE chart.
It should be enough, I would think, with 30 minutes left. We've been in this race now for, what, 45 minutes, and we've used, well, 75? It's going to be close. Again, I would go for the overfueling. Now, they also, of course, still have the ability to change how much virtual energy they consume. We only have access to seeing their virtual energy. We don't have access to seeing their actual fuel tank, and they can change the ratios around. So when it comes to fuel saving versus virtual energy saving, we can only see one of them that they're saving right now in the simulator. So keep in mind, there's also still that fuel tank that they are dealing with. And immediately now Dusamo having to deal with a BMW at him. This is JF. I cannot speak.
Oh, he hit him anyway.
And he's punted him.
Yep, there goes the let off the track. Desorno gonna have a little bit more damage added to that one from the hit. Just like that, the 51 could have plummeted a bit more here. Should see the full wave of drivers for their scheduled stops coming up in a couple moments here, by the way. As here's a look at that battle for what is currently second on the track. Christopher Larson still in front of the 116 in this fight. They've got a 15-second cushion to the next car.
Yeah, a lot of work to do right now for Herger. And Massenave, thankfully, feeling quite comfortable. I would imagine this is going to allow him to give whatever he can to Larson, throw it at the wall, see what sticks, and unfortunately, that driver that we're lapping right now is Fonseca, somebody that we would have expected to be battling in that top 10 fight that we were talking about before, but we saw earlier after getting very, very rudely punted off by a BMW and having their front or their rear right tire surgically removed from their machine, they had to make a pit stop unscheduled, go in, get the car fixed, and back out on track. 24th position right now for Fonseca. Massenave, not worried about them, just worried about the other Ferrari ahead. And look at how deep Larson goes through that sector. I would imagine if you're Massenave, you can see a little bit of light in his eyes, and immediately they're onto the back. The slipstream's going to help out, but he's not close enough this time.
Just a little bit on the pole. Now, will he be brave enough to send it? He's thinking about it. No. Larson, though, left a little bit of a door open, couldn't force it fully, though. With how these bumps work out here, that part of the racetrack, you just can't make it stick. The 777, Herger, just went on in for service. So the wave is now fully in sight for a lot of those leaders. With 31 minutes to go, it's P.E. Laporte who's up at the front of the field. Larson, Maisonneuve, Bailey, Chamberlain. Chamberlain already with service, remember. Over the course of these stints in the top 5 as we go in the closing stages. So, now the interesting part to me is going to be where this lead is going to settle in for the 93, because the times have been picking up from him. You see how much he's knocking down the time to the leaders here on the pylon. So where are these leaders going to be cycling? Or you have to think shorter pit stops for the drivers who are already out here and going to already be near identical on the virtual energy store.
Yeah, and I think out of all these drivers, Laporte has such a good opportunity to find himself gaining ground here, as he has been absolutely flying these past few laps. 2:13.8. He is the only driver in the 2:13s. In fact, he's the only driver quicker than the 2:14.5s. Chamberlain, well, managing a 2:14.1 as his best, but just outside of the 5s right now. So he needs to find some pace himself, I think, or he might be at risk from Pierre Laportier and potentially even Chris Larson. I think Larson a little bit too far, or a little too slow in terms of his times. But Laporte doing a very solid job right now.
Yeah, it's been brilliant what he's been able to do today. I know he got punched, to say the least, after he ran out of gas on the final lap. He had drivers trying to push him, Mike, in France to cross the start and finish line, where he was top 3, top 5 towards the end, and then fell all the way down to basically to the last car left on the lead lap, if not a lap down. I believe actually got passed by the leaders. So that's how big it is to make sure you get the numbers right. As you said, a lot of drivers took note on that situation for this race this time around here. Oh, that was a car the wrong way around. That's a McLaren in a dangerous spot down the front stretch. I believe that's 23rd. That's Frank Ortex.
We will be finding a replay of that very shortly, I would imagine, as I'm looking at Frank here. He's all on his lonesome for a good while, so I suspect it's just a bit of a spin. But we'll get an update you here very shortly.
Yeah, how's that feeling as a driver when you have a normal racing line, you're thinking everything's okay, and then you round the corner and boom, there's a car there?
It certainly tests the structural fortitude of your racing trousers, Justin. That's what I would say. It separates the men from the boys.
And it also sees if there's separation of the bumper from your front of car. Berger will cut his way through traffic here. And right now running last time through in the 2:15s, the fastest lap. Morrow just running his own pace in the 270 here. You can see very cordial as lap traffic today. Give him credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we do have a bit of a replay of that if you would like to take a look. We'll go from the onboard of Gore-Tex as well, just to give you some perspective of exactly what it's like from this point of view. So Gore-Tex casually going through the final corner, gets on the accelerator. That's not quite where you want to be. Rounds out, and hello, there are two drivers ready to go for him. So there is Frank immediately getting back out on the circuit. In fact, he almost tries to make his way down the old pit lane, or the other pit lane, down the start-finish straight. He rejoins safely, though, and is back underway. So no harm, no foul from anybody, but certainly that could have been absolute disaster if these drivers were maybe got a little target fixated.
Just out of curiosity, in terms of the track itself here, you talk about the differences in the pit lanes, for example. Have you gotten to experience Sebring in person yet, Mike?
No, I have not. I was just in Florida, but I did not get to experience Sebring, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it.
I was just curious on that because I know you mentioned how flat this track is with the elevation changes. I will say it's an interesting sensation if you actually do come here in person. Had the chance, I know I alluded to with SRO competition last year, to be able to go there. They used that front straightaway pit lane, and it's an interesting viewpoint when you're up in the press box to be able to see the crews quickly get up in, get the work done in your car, while in some series that do have the pit stops, your backup driver is ready to jump into, and you have those teams communicating with those respective teams. Obviously in this series, you don't have that luxury of a driver swap, but you do have that communication side, though, that can factor on into decision making, such as these leaders peeling on down to the heart of this hornet's nest.
Yeah, and we see some requesting of pit lanes up at the top. Massenave coming in, Leroy coming in. Leroy also significantly out of position. So that's entering, yes, he's entering pit lane currently. Loving the new graphics, by the way, as we can see up on these streams we've had for the previous few broadcasts. Brought to you by Sagerbakshi as well, of course, V-Speed. Big shout out to them for putting the show on here. But look at where Massenave is going to come out. He is going to come out in clean air, more than likely. Wait, he's requesting. Okay, he's requesting right now. So he should be coming out, I would imagine, right around Disormeau, who is managed to... Hold on. Has Disormeau pit?
Yes, remember, right? Pit and had a drive-through.
Holy smokes. What did they put in this man's Wheaties in the morning?
Racing fuel, of course. As
was that?
Max Mason coming on in.
Did he cross the white line there? I'm curious. It looked like he wanted to go to the old pit lane entrance, but then didn't. Maybe I could be mistaken. The camera angle didn't quite do it justice. He didn't react too much, so I'm assuming he should be all fine. David Pittman going to be, or excuse me, Longo coming out. That was the driver earlier involved
look at that.
the incident. Oh, he missed his pit box. That's embarrassing. We caught that on camera. Sorry, Massanev.
Yeah, the crew had to physically lift the car. That looks like a good 3 feet off the yellow marker.
Yeah, he'll get a strong talking to from his mechanics after this one for certain, but, you know, it's wet. Can you really blame him? Max Verstappen missed the entire pit lane in the Daytona 500, or in the Daytona 24 last year, so, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, as 20 seconds, Max Masonov, how's that going to fare out on the cycle? We could already tell you he's cycled behind. So what we were keeping an eye on for the net lead, at the very least, on the bubbles. Geraldo has already taken the service in the battle with the McLarens. Now, all 3 McLarens now with a part of this choo-choo train on the positions at least have taken stops. Beneke, who is the next car back, has not. In fact, some of the leaders still trying to cut their way through on here too. And that's going to be having to make quick work if you're some of these lead cars here. Get yourselves through traffic because you cannot afford to lose time when you're trying the overcut.
No, you certainly can't. And by the way, the track is down to 5% rain right now. All drivers are on wet tires still, and I'd imagine they're going to come back out on wet tires as it should start raining at some point. Regardless, I don't think it's going to dry up at this point. It's only 22 degrees Celsius. Okay, that's Celsius, so that's actually, it's pretty warm. But it's still, Florida known for its humidity is going to be, well, a little bit difficult for this track to dry out as the air is basically water.
I mean, science class? Huh. I'm not great at remembering science, but I know the water is air. That makes no sense.
Water is wet.
Either way, Laporte's right now down to 5% in something more important in terms of the race itself. Obviously, trying to stretch as far as possible here, try to take the shortest stop as he can. For reference, if you add up the seconds left, that is going to be a gap of 29 seconds to the 93 machine. Is that going to be enough of a buffer to try and cycle in front here?
It was 20 seconds before, so in theory, yes. But I think it's going to come down to making sure he hits his marks. There's our service times that we see an average of around 20 seconds, so almost certainly I don't see how Laportier is not going to come out ahead.
Yeah, if it's in the 17-second range, game could be on here, like Laurentis did, like Zach Wolf, who had pit actually earlier, much earlier, to some of those who have already peeled their way in, like Masonov, who took that extra fuel for safety. So we'll see if the risk is taken here, or if he tries to take the points. Keep in mind, last time by in the standings, as a result of that fuel kerfluffle, you've seen him plummet down to 5th in the standings with a 21st place finish. To have a chance to be at least back in the conversation, to maybe give pressure to Max Masonov, he needs a solid finish today because Maxim Gentron is not here today and is missing his 2nd race of the season. At the very least, the run he's got could put him into 4th because that is the minimum. Here's the stop. You see him sticking to the right side of the track. No cross away, and into the lane he goes.
And nice and clean so far. Now get it stopped in time. Very conservative on the entry. Don't worry about making any other mistakes. Just get the speed stopped and get the car stopped on your marks here. That's all you're going to be focusing on if you are Laportier. I'm surprised Larson is still out. He is, well, again, I'm not so sure. 2:13.8? Was that his previous lap? That doesn't seem like it. I think that that was 2:17.3 for Larson, so he absolutely should come in. That is tremendously slower than his fastest.
Oh, he missed the
lap.
box.
Oh, and Pierre also going to be made a fool, unfortunately, and we caught it on camera. Pierre, sorry about that, and he misses his box as well.
doesn't matter. He's already been passed by Chamberlain, who had gained a lot of ground. That gap is going to be pretty significant. It's still going to be net top 3 potentially because Max Mason still yet to get there. So at the very least, he jumps a couple of the cars he was running behind for a little bit, but still not enough to get past your leader. Christopher Larson stays out for now. Laporte looks to be in a good spot to be at the minimum second right now, net.
Yeah, that's a 54-second pit stop time compared to a 54 pit lane time compared to a 50-second pit lane time from Chamberlain. So coming out nearly, what is that, 4 seconds? That's basically the gap right there. That one mistake from Laporte, if he maybe just carried a little more speed into pit lane, wasn't as conservative, that could have made the difference, but no. Now he's back in the back burner, however, on much fresher tires, on a much drier track right now. The variables, honestly, this is anyone's game.
Yeah, it's an interesting variable of what we've seen play out here. Obviously, when you break down with a 50-second pit delta, you're not going to gain that. You need a massive buffer. Beat Chamberlain here today. So with the way this is looking, you add up the time here. This is not the day we might have expected for Christopher Larson from the start of qualifying to how this race has gone. The BOP just, it feels like just hasn't gone the way we expected for Larson, the drive we expect from Larson when he's been able to run away usually on the dry.
Yeah, and that's the difference maker. The rain being the great equalizer, as some have said, and we see it here tonight. Christopher Larson able to be tamed, especially after the qualifying performance as well that we saw, managing to really put a dominant time in, and that was in a slightly damp qualifying as well. We thought that it was going to be a runaway, and well, not quite as cut and dry as we would have expected. Now Xavier Chamberlain back in the lead right now. Larson into who knows what position, as he'll be coming out in what looks to be third, fourth, maybe ahead of Bailey. Should be, I think, but again, the writing not really on the walls right now for Chamberlain. He has a fairly comfortable gap ahead.
There goes Larson. So right on the exit, Max Masonov going to be pretty close here. Larson, you see the energy. That's a lot less compared to what Masonov did, but it's still not going to be enough for the podium because the pit lane delta. So Larson cycles to where it's going to be a top 5 run unless there's any mistakes in the next 17 minutes. But for him, it's a massive amount of track to have to hope to gain. Donovan Bailey, this is wild because the way things have gone today for Donovan Bailey, you wouldn't think he'd be top 5, but he is.
No, it only says 5 positions gained, but that's only 5 total positions gained. The amount of overtakes that this man has had to do is probably in the double digits, and most certainly, I mean, well, certainly in double digits. I would even guess as far as saying the 20s. Karl Maurer, the only driver that really only compete when it comes to those overtakes. He's coming into pit lane right now. And will be losing a few of those gained positions, more than likely up 10. John Beneke up 8 positions as well. Those are some of your biggest gainers here for tonight. But my goodness, Laportier as well, 5 positions gained. This has been a solid performance for some and an absolutely dreadful one for other ones. Let's take a look back. Frank Gore-Tex no longer in this race. Marc-Andre Hamel not in this race. Francois Richard not in this race. As well as a few others, Oliver Legrand as well. So some big names knocked out early, and still, again, some massive shakeups to happen.
Charney, you could also throw in that conversation too. Zeka is already at least a lap behind the next nearest car from incidents. A lot of people had a lot of problems, as you see the Raw trying to dig in the 11th position. Maurer seems to be losing some ground pretty quickly here. As you can see with the rooster tails again, Mike, I think we're now right back in that light rain mix as you see the wipers working as hard as they can with the way the drizzle's coming down. You see the graphics really showing.
One of my biggest pet peeves, to be completely honest, full wipers in not that rainy conditions. I absolutely hate seeing that as a Washington citizen, but hey, Either way, and neither here nor there, it's wet, it's 5% rain and climbing right now, and the pressure is also climbing for some. Leroy, look at that, he's got a McLaren all over the back of him right now.
Yeah, still, you have to give credit to a lot of these drivers today who have been able to withstand all the spins that some have had, some of the off tracks, still be right in the mix. Yeah, I'm surprised that you go this quick, because here's the thing, when you go that quick with a rear-wheel car, especially your street car, you streak the windshield. It's actually streaking the windshield here in LMU as well. That's how well the graphics work, because the way they work when it's not as wet of a windshield to keep it slick.
You can also, I mean, you can't hear it right now, but I can hear it in my ear of ears, the squeaking that is going on with those windshield wipers, one of my least favorite sounds on the planet. Either way, Morat Maurer had Maxim Grennan behind him, but if you were keen-eyed and saw in a rearview mirror, Grennan went straight on in one of the previous corners and is no longer much of a threat, but he'll be back. Don't count him out just yet. These two going to be getting their fight on here, I would imagine, very, very shortly. And as I say that, through Tower Bend and on the way down towards the bottom here, are we going to see the setup from Carl? Not quite, not close enough. A little deep though, that's going to be the mistake from Leroy that almost certainly is going to allow Maurer through on this coming corner. However, the McLaren seems to be an off-roader. It didn't even care.
Yeah, not too much of a care for the off tracks there. A little bit of a deep set initially on the brakes. Keep in mind, you talked about the 70 right of the conversation too. If any of these drivers make a mistake, that's free real estate to gain a couple more points there for Gendron indeed in this circumstance. 13 minutes to go. Maurer taking the outside. Has to back out of it once again. Will he try for the cross though when the power tries to get alongside? Doesn't work coming up to 2 and 3.
Oh, you got to be so careful where you place your nose, and he places it just wrong. He gives a love tap to Leroy up ahead, but the damage is done. Or is it actually? Yes, it is. That's going to be Grennan getting on through with ease now, and all of that hard work, all of that pressure has boiled over, and unfortunately shot himself in the foot.
Yeah, so a wild sequence for a moment there to give free opportunities to the 6. Maurer, as a result, all the way down to 13th in one of our closest, in fact, the closest battle box you see on the racetrack late. Leap and Wolf are also close. Let's just add some off tracks in an air battle with the BMWs. It's interesting how the manufacturers, if anything, have gravitated towards each other here. Look at this though, with Gendron able to get the send and able to get the spots now, led on through, and nearly wrecks himself. He drips his way through. Laurent tries to make to the outside. What a slide, and everybody holding on for dear life.
Tip your hat to that man. How did he get the overtake done despite having his car nearly pitched all the way sideways and crab walking to the next corner? I don't think I've ever seen a display that resulted in a pass like that. Either way, Maxim Grennan easily through, I guess, easily being heavy air quotes, but Leroy losing ground massively. And look at this, is he pushing too hard? Has he overcooked his tires? What is going on here? Is immediately he was battling for position, now losing 1 second, 1.2, going to be 1.4 by the end of this straight, it looks like, and that's going to allow Carl Maurer to come right back in as well.
Yeah, this is some intense fighting. This is not even from the top 10, but every spot is a spot. When you have 10 minutes to go, I guess you could say. You know, points are points. You want to have fun with whoever you're battling along with, especially with the way this race has trended after the chaos that reigned and just the light rain box earlier. Here's Zach Wolf in that air battle box we're talking about. He's still battling with the Porsche. Lamborghini. We talked about the strength knowing going their way. Only a couple of them today. Wolf is the other one in this field. He's been just kind of, I think, just trying to stay out of the trouble. Have a quiet race, keep himself pretty steady, and now he's looking to try and get 17th here.
He's not in the best position to do so, setting himself for the outside line of turn 1, the circuit being an anti-clockwise circuit, of course. Your first turn, a left-hander, and not quite close enough there for Zach Wolf on this occasion, but he's got to be working him. It's a long boxing match, like a 12-rounder right now. Well, I guess we're currently in round 3. There's 9 to go. And let's see, how does Zach Wolf chip away at his opponent, get into his head, intimidate him, as well as maybe physically, give him a little hurry up every now and then. No, maybe not. This is clean racing, of course. But Zach Wolf, he's going to want to get by, and he's going to want to get by quick.
Yep, and right now, at this point, you only have a couple shots really to do this, because talking about, oh! My goodness, that was nearly cleaning out your opponent instead.
I think William Felipe also went deep there to avoid the contact, which very intelligent and heads-up decision driving there because, yeah, that was a heat-seeking missile. A charging bull heading straight for you, and thankfully he said Toro and got out of the way. Oh, and does it again.
Ole, says the 999. As here come the leaders, Max Masonov drives on through, and that likely ends that battle. By the way, for Wolf, it's his best race of the season, Mike. 17th place. Not bad after he's been finishing in the 20s all season. This would potentially get him some ground to gain a few spots in the mid-20s for the point standings. So
5 positions gained so far in this race. It's very impressive display for Zach Wolf, and keep plugging away at it. And again, rain being the great equalizer here, so we see some diamonds in the rough, and then we see some rough with the diamonds. That sounded better in my head.
Look at how things are going for the lead, by the way. Yes, you're looking at that right. It's 18 seconds now for Chamberlain. The 93 has just been a rocket. And we talk about team dynamics. If you are the U8R machines, there's nothing else you can say except they have really sorted themselves out as a group here today. There's lots of teams here. I know we talk about in terms of some of the teams that pop up here. They've been the most prominent because their cars have been plastered over the top 3.
Yeah, and continuing to do so. We need another team to get in here and dethrone them, get some competition running in here, some rivalries, as we always like to say, and get some drama going on. Who's going to be the one to beat U8R first? So far, I think you're right. We've had nothing but a U8R sweep so far, have we not?
I mean, Larson has been able to dethrone some of them throughout the season, absolutely, though. And some of the others, though, have been able to put together such a charge that you have to give huge credits to a few of them as we keep an eye on this battle for 13 still. For 12 now, actually. Right now, days or no, you might be talking about him on the podium if it wasn't for the drive-through, Mike. With the way the math worked and the pace settled in for the 22 off screen here. 6th spot on that pylon is incredible, to say the very least, as here comes the leader to lap by this battle.
Yeah, feels bad, but you always got to let it go no matter what, and through they go without any issue. And, you know, looking at Disarmo and then the driver ahead of him as well, I will say 5th and 6th position, I definitely did not have either of those two on my bingo card at any point in time there. But 4th for Donovan Bailey after a very, very difficult race. And he should be proud of himself after that. That's quite a display. 7 positions gained despite, again, having to be dropped pretty much back down to 15th mid-pack at one point, and he's clawed his way back through.
Yeah, this has been interesting. Remember, Bailey, for reference, talking about him, DNF to start the year in Britain. 10th place, 2nd race, didn't start last race, starts this race, has his best run of the season in terms of those reference points. Depulin also having a decent race out despite some of the incidents. They're going to gain a couple more spots here in his Porsche now, too.
See if he can manage here, Dan Poulin. We've seen him up and down so far. It's been a bit of a yo-yo performance. And now we see the aggression being shown immediately. Gets alongside and is going to make the move stick, I think. And was that a mistake there from the McLaren? Or is Mirar just not pushing particularly hard? Either way, pulling ahead. And now we have Leroy as the next potential victim.
Yeah, that's going to take a little bit of work. Should show Felipe's pace, by the way, to be able to chase back down Wolf here. That's after losing a couple seconds previous. And just like that, spot retaken all of a sudden. Wolf has been keeping things pretty conservative approach on this run. As you see them with less than 4 minutes to go, a couple laps to go. I think the 60s just focused on bringing the race on home as everybody takes the off tracks in this case.
Yeah, and Zach Wolf here managing to get the job done again under William Felipe, not taking no for an answer whatsoever. I love to see it. Showing the aggression of a Wolf in reality, and he's seemingly hungry as such on top of it. Karl Mirar still on the back, by the way, of Leroy, and looking like he's going to be making a move here potentially. The slipstream is strong. It's McLaren on McLaren violence here, and with that little extra boost of speed, it's a tough defense. Down to the inside goes the 117, and that should be done and dusted. Chucks it into the high-speed apex here. Are we going to see Leroy double back and get this switcheroo? It looks like we might. He gets a very solid exit, in fact, and that is going to be enough to stay ahead, not even in the braking zone, but at the corner exit.
Nice move going out of Sunset here. So we reached less than 3.5 minutes to work with on the race. Should be worth noting, you see a couple drivers at least checking their settings, making sure there's nothing wrong with the rain piling on at the end of this one. And obviously, you have to keep an eye on the VE to close things on out. Right now, Leroy keep it done and dusted. Everybody's safe here today with the way things have gone. That's 11% at the lowest mark here. No fuel issues. I think some of the drivers are just pressing the button just to press the button at this rate.
Yeah, I don't think we had any auto fuelers. I think that was the complaint last week, right? As they went for the auto fuel and it wasn't enough. This time you put a couple extra liters in, you put a couple extra bit of virtual energy, and just make sure you make it home. Don't worry about anything and just get the job done. Maxim Brennan, by the way, requesting a pit stop here, and I'm not completely sure why.
I don't think he's going to pit. I think he's just in case. It's a safety measure, right? Request a pit doesn't mean you're me requesting a pit. It means you're playing around with your pit settings.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Leroy here, still with a bit of pressure on the back. These two are not going to be separated, I don't think, for the rest of this race. And honestly, I think you could flip a coin to guess who's going to win.
Here's a look from one of the game cams, I guess you could say, when it comes to LMU. See the rear view cam as well. Or backing up the corner, heading up into Le Mans to set up an opportunity for the Omen Straight. Less than 2 minutes to go. Should be coming up to the closing marks here. Next time by, going to be likely the white flag based on the timing marks. The leader already coming through Sunset up the road. Speaking of which, the sun starts to peek out here. Oh, wow, the 117 not close enough for a peek of a dive.
Not on this occasion. The switchback, though, we've seen be quite powerful, but this is an aggressive line from Karl. I don't think he's going to get the run he would like. He takes the apex aggressively, gets the run to the wall, but that's not what you want to see here. You want to double back that corner and get the much, much faster run on this start-finish straight. Either way, he will have another opportunity. In fact, he'll have about 2 more opportunities if he wants to make this strike. The white flag, I think, is out. We'll have to see. It could be.
Yeah.
Yes, it almost certainly is, as Chamberlain nearly halfway done with this lap.
Yeah, already 40 seconds left on the clock here. Should be well and dusted here, but talk about speed. Started things off not with the greatest of starts, Mike, with the Rooster Tail Fiesta on lap 1. That was a concern for a couple drivers coming into tonight. But once he was able to get himself back to second, past Desarnaud with ease, he just took off as the rain got harder and harder.
Yeah, we had that brief little question of, is Laportier going to come out ahead in the pit stop phase and then immediately were proved completely wrong, and Laportier got shown the door, quite frankly, and Xavier Chamberlain says, make way, I am going to be the first one to have 2 victories here in this series.
That's a wild statement with the way things have gone this season, but it shows just the competitiveness of Simu Nation to not just have one driver win all the races, but there has been a sense of consistency for the 93, who's been able to stay out of trouble in all 4 races so far this season, to be able to take control of this championship, to build the buffer to a large gap coming into tonight. Already the gap has a potential possibility to reach upwards of near 100 points with the way things shaped up, and seeing drivers like Larson get their first non-podium finish when they were taking the checkered flag here today. But for Xavier Chamberlain, he'll come on through sunset one final time and get ready to celebrate. For the second time this season, for the first time since the opener, the 93 will come out of the final corner and put on a clinic. Xavier Chamberlain will come away with the stripe and come away with a win at Sebring.
Nicely done for Xavier Chamberlain. Next up to the line is going to be Pierre Laporte, and a little bit of a wiggle through the final corner, intentionally so, and he's going to be coming to the line with joy and finishing in second place with the Lamborghini.
Next, Mason Nerve coming away in the top 3, or will it be? Looks like he's close with Larson. Can Larson get something done on the final straightaway of the day? No. Max Mason Nerve holds on to the podium over Larson. Larson's lowest finish outside of the DNF this season. Remember, there was a DNF at Monza. Last trip to Italy for that red, white, and blue Ferrari. But some of the drives of the day, Donovan Bailey and Jonathan Desarnaux right behind him, a few seconds back. Bailey gets a top 5. Wolf gets his best finish in 16th. Some interesting runs here as we finish off with some door baiting after the finish.
Love to be shown at the end. You like to see it. Pierre up 5 positions, 7 positions for Donovan Bailey gained, and Perret, by the way, one of the kind of drivers that we didn't speak much of, 8 positions gained.
See some of the intervals here as in the end, you're reading that right, that's 5 showing on the lead lap. Chamberlain coming away with a win. Laporte coming over Mason Nerve in the top 3. Larson and Bailey in the top 5. Desarnaux in 6th spot. Swivel on to a lot of drivers that are notable in this grouping though. Laurent coming in 13th, Nolan in 15th. Wolf his best run in 16th. Lippe in 18th. Longate quietly the first driver 2 laps down in 19th over Moro. And keep in mind, we had a lot of drivers have issues or not even get a chance to start. A lot of registrations, but in the end, we ended up with 23 on the track. Gore-Tex was the first DNF. Richard was a notable DNF as well here today in 26. Matroni also didn't really get going from the opening lap. And a bunch of different drivers at least tried to run for this race, Mike, but didn't on your list.
Yeah, unfortunately so, and we saw some big names get knocked out early as well, which really shaking the point standings up massively here tonight. And we'll see as we get on to the next track. It is going to be another trip to, I think, the Italian homeland. We head over to Emilia-Romagna and get ready for some Imola. And that is going to be a much different circuit to the one that we have here tonight. And hopefully for the drivers, some much different conditions as well.
Corey, waiting on drivers to make their way in for post-race interviews after this one today. So your thoughts on the rainy race here at Sebring? It seemed like there was a lot of chaos early, but it really settled in late.
Yeah, I think the short here is going to be, you couldn't predict what was going to happen. The first half of this race, especially with the rain starting at 20%, climbing up to 50, it was a battle of mistakes. Drivers spinning left and right, making mistakes here, getting on the power too early there, and then just understeering into oblivion over there. You can have any list of mistakes throughout this night, and every single one of them is possible and more than likely happened. It was an entertaining one. We saw some big drives as well, which I absolutely love to see. Unfortunately, we don't get to hear from some of those on the podium, but we get to hear from some now. I'll let you take it from here, Justin.
Yes, indeed, we have Pierre-Etienne Laporte joining us here in the broadcast booth. Pierre, let's talk about this one, as you didn't run out of fuel this time, as the bright side. But you also had a rocket ship of a car and a rocket ship of a team. Talk us through this rainy one.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I wasn't so proud of my last race, so I wanted to shine there, and that's why I took the time to do some laps with Xavier, just to make sure that I can understand what's best for this race. And of course, I'm pretty proud of my team. So this is a ultimate racing podium. So pretty proud of the race tonight.
Yeah, indeed. And I was going to say, how was it in terms of getting the setups dialed in for a race like this tonight, especially knowing how much the weather variables changed over the course of this race, and having to adapt that setup to knowing it was going to be dry, rainy, not rainy, drizzle, rainy, everywhere.
Yeah, I'd say I took the chance just to go full wet. Yesterday I had the chance to do some laps and see what kind of setups I wanted to run, and of course Xavier did help me. So and I tried some ChatGPT setups as well, just because I wasn't finding something that fits me. In the end, I found a very good setups that did shine tonight, and I'd say I took the chance just to try and do a full wet race, even if the track was getting dry. I'd say I wanted to do a full wet, so. That was basically my strategy for tonight.
So with that being said here, we go back to Italy next. Imola is on the docket. Your thoughts on going to the more technical of the Italian circuits?
hmm hmm Yeah, I'd say with the last patch, Le Mans Ultimate patch, the Lambo has been nerfed, so I don't know what's going to be my time on Imola. I'm sure I'll need to practice because during the last weeks I hadn't had the chance to do a lot of laps. So I'm pretty excited about this track because this is one of my favorites. I know it's pretty technical, but I can shine definitely since I did a lot of lapping on that track. So.
Any shout you'd like to give here today?
Yeah, I want to thank you, of course, Xavier, who's always there to help me improve. There's no other tips than doing laps with top drivers. So everyone keep that in mind. And I want to thank as well Ultimate Racing. I'm proud of being in that team, and of course my girlfriend just to let me I'd say have fun with my rig, since this is a very nice passion. And I want also to thank you guys and the Simu Nation team. This is a very nice project, and we want to see where we can go with that project. So thank you very much, guys. You're doing a great job.
Congratulations on the run here today, Pierre.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, guys.
Pierre Laporte coming away with a good run today. I'd like to thank him for taking time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on V-Speed and with our coverage here with Simu Nation. Mike, it was a thrill to say the very least tonight, but as said, those BOP adjustments we referred a bit to today, going to be a focal point. A lot of the cars nerfed for Imola.
Yeah, and on top of that, we're coming down to the second half now of our championship, down to the wire where the races really start to matter. Every point matters in this championship, but this is where we're going to start to see some desperate moves, desperate actions, and potentially some absolutely exciting and electric opportunities for drivers to make gains. The points shook up massively tonight, Justin, and as we get ready to head over to Imola for the next card for March 10th, I cannot wait to see what we have in store.
On that note, it's just about time to say goodbye for tonight's coverage of Simu Nation Racing with the GT3 Masters here from Sebring International Raceway. For my colleague in the booth and Mike Noss, for our producer and Sigur Bakshi, for our sponsors in NOX Gaming and Wolf Sim Racing. Mike, thank you for watching tonight's action. We hope to see you soon. We'll see you next time when we go back to Italy, to Imola.